Good morning, everybody. As Graham mentioned, I'm Seth Clevenstein. I work for the Office of Satellite Products and Operations out of Suitland, Maryland. I am the GeoNetcast America's Direct Broadcast Manager. I sort of fill in for GRB and HRD, try to make sure that they're represented. I think some of the users have probably heard me host the past couple GRB user group meetings. So today, my presentation is going to mainly encompass the GOES rebroadcast and the JPSS constellations, their current status as far as the direct broadcast portion of it, as well as just a brief overview of the branch itself, as well as the direct services branch contact information. So this is kind of an all-encompassing satellite broadcast overview of the branch itself. So direct services team manages the GOES rebroadcast, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, the H.M1, which is the high rate information transmission, Emergency Managers Weather Information Network, as well as DCS, which is the data collection system, and the program that I manage, which is GeoNetcast Americas, as well as the HRD and the old POES, APT, HRPT broadcasts. So I think for the most part, the present GOES constellation flyout was already briefed earlier this morning. So this is the current flyout on the bottom, as well as with the operational GOES East and West satellites. Current GOES 16 and 17 instrument status. I'm not going to go over too much of this. I think for the most part, everyone is aware of the GOES 17's ABI loop key pipe anomaly, as well as the GOES 16 mag from early on. For the subsystems, the only thing of note, which is actually there's nothing to note. Everything is nominal for the auxiliary comms payload unit that hosts all the transponders. The GRB user community. So essentially there's over 217 members in the GRB user community. They're all encompassed in a roster, added to an email distribution list. And anything that's GRB specific, anything that affects broadcast, any outages, administrative notices, future planned events, that gets passed along. A lot of this work was done by James McNitt. I think some folks know Jim. So Jim did an exceptional job gathering a lot of this information, getting a lot of the users, tracking where they're at. So currently, we know that there's around 74 known GRB sites. Some of these sites have more than one. I think we've calculated about 101 total receive stations or antennas. Many of these sites use CSPP. A lot of the users that I deal with GeoNetcast Americas use, if they're using GeoNetcast as well as GRB, they definitely use CSPP. So, and CSPP has a huge impact on the program that I run as well. For the GRB user group meeting, we meet every 3 months. We try to, for the most part. As I mentioned, this position is currently vacant, which should be filled here very shortly. So, hoping to get a body within here very shortly. But the user group meetings provide GOES status, future GOES events, user updates, CSPP updates with Graham, and other ancillary GRB topics. This was already briefed earlier this morning, but I'll just go over it real briefly. The current GOES constellation with the West transition plan, currently at 137.2 degrees west, GOES 17 maintains. It'll be nudged. We call it nudged. July 5th, over a 10-day period, it'll maneuver a tenth of a degree over to the west to 137.3, as well as GOES 18 will move to 137.0, and that's where it will remain when it goes operational in January 2023. To note, GOES 17's GRB signal will be the only GRB signal active until January 3rd, 2023, when GOES 18 is deemed the operational satellite. Another timeline kind of showing exactly where we're at. We're at the post-launch testing part 2, and right there is the July 5th to 5th to the 15th, the orbital maneuvers for both satellites. And then to note, there's two ABI, the 2 warm periods coming out for GOES 17. There's 2 ABI interleave periods where GOES 17 GRB feed will contain GOES 18's ABI data. And here's another timeline that was provided by Matt Siebold and GOES Pro team, highlighting those 2 interleave periods. It also gives a nice breakdown of exactly when all the instruments are going beta as well as provisional. And it also gives the product distribution portion. That's GRB, PDA, AWIPS, H-Red-M1, GeoNetcast Americas, as far as exactly where they go, what data they're going to maintain. In this next slide, it'll highlight GRB will have GOES 18's ABI radiances, or L1Bs, but it will still maintain its GLM level 2 products as well as its space weather L1Bs. For the most part, H-Red-M1, GeoNetcast Americas, both those broadcasts will support ABI, GOES 18's ABI cloud moisture imagery products as well during those warm periods that were noted earlier, or I should say the interleave periods. Just to put the GRB spacecraft IDs and metadata decoder. So for the most part, GND or a PLT test GND 008, that's already concluded. That was the 4-hour test that occurred the previous week. And just to note exactly what users should expect as far as the GRB spacecraft ID, the AOS frame header, the data source, instrument and platform IDs. Naturally, everything will go nominal once GOES 18 is the GOES West satellite. GOES 18 level 1B radiance, or I should say level 1B science product validation status. This is usually maintained on our Noesis website by Liz Klein. She does a great job of this. So all the readmes, everything that's been put out, gets distributed on the Noesis website for users to look at more in depth. As briefed earlier this morning, radiance is expected to be provisional in late July. A large majority of the other L1Bs and GLM is expected in the fall timeframe. For the ABI Level 2 products for GOES 18, essentially it's going to follow a similar path. I should say the CMI will follow a similar path with all the other Level 2 products coming in the fall of 2022. And just briefly going over GOES 18's data sharing policy, currently we are between beta and provisional, which allows data, image, and via social media, but must contain the caveat GOES 18 preliminary, non-operational data. The sharing of data files is not allowed. During the interleave periods, which essentially that's when, for the most part, most of the CMI and the L1B radiances are provisional, will be allowed. This slide was also showed earlier, but I feel like I should highlight on it as well. This was the current GeoXO projected architecture, I should say, for, and it does not show a GRB or an H-Red-M1 transponder on Noaa's future satellite series. It does have L1Bs still being maintained and processed at the acquisition site, transferred to the cloud or to the NCCF. Data will be provided to users via multiple terrestrial pathways as well as a commercial satellite rebroadcast. I think that was briefed earlier. So the current, it does maintain the data collection system. So the latest thought process is to have that, that same UHF uplink for users, for GOES East and GOES West users, uplinking the data, still having a to be determined downlink as far as what that may be, if that's an L-band versus something else. That's still TBD. And the other aspect is that beam for that L-band, or I should say that downlink for DCS data, is still TBD as well. But the data collection system will still be on GeoXO as current today. So currently NOAA is assessing user needs and potential observational capabilities, as Kat kind of just had her talk. So GeoXO requirements, definition, and pilot studies are underway and will lead to a preliminary design of the spacecraft and instruments. I was told in the critical design stage, NOAA will provide data to users on new capabilities. Essentially, that's projected to launch in the early 2030s. So on to JPSS high rate data. So I'll just present the current polar constellation. I was going to hint on the legacy NOAA 15, 18, and 19. I think you can see down there on the lower left-hand side, the flyout schedule shows NOAA 15 projected out to FY15, but Satya kind of mentioned that we are extending NOAA 18 and 19, so those APT and HRPT services will be available for another few more years as well. Current status of SNPP and Noaa 20. The only thing to know, which I also saw you already briefed on, was the CRIS instrument on SNPP as far as the long wave and short wave IR bands are functional, while the mid IR bands are not operational. So Jpss Launch, which was already briefed to as well, set to occur November 1st, 2022 at 5:24 Eastern from Vandenberg Air Force Base. On the upper right-hand side is kind of the transition to operations. This is the information that was passed along from Jim to me, so I'll try my best to explain. Handover at L plus, launch plus 3 months. Noaa 20 will be primary, with SNPP being secondary, and Noaa 21 being tertiary. The operational declaration, L plus a defined time date that's usually, I guess, will be from NCO's assimilated data. Noaa 21 will be considered secondary, and at a primary designation L plus 9 to 12 months, Noaa 21 will become primary, while Noaa 20 becomes secondary. And some of the primary satellite destination requirements are key performance parameters are met, primary instruments reached at least provisionary maturity and were declared operational, as well as National Weather Service and mission partners agreed they were ready to transition. So to highlight the changes, there is some changes from SNPP and Noaa 20 high rate data broadcast to JPSS2. And I think Jim has did a phenomenal job of briefing this both in CGS meetings, past HRD user group meetings. So I will just brief it one more time and try not to mess it up. So for the most part, there is a data rate change from the 15 megabits per second to 25 megabits per second, as well as the widened bandwidth of 20 extra megahertz. Change in modulation, and for the most part, those are the main changes for users. All the technical information about HRD can be found at the following URL at the bottom of the screen. It shows all the ICDs that go into great depth about the high rate data. So what should users know? Future J2, 3, 4 HRD users, that either an upgrade or modification is necessary to the receive stations in order to capture HRD from future JPSS satellites. Existing modulators may require reprogramming, and existing feeds may need modification from the manufacturer. Naturally, higher downlink data rates requires more IF bandwidth, so users can send the feed to the manufacturer to have the IF filter in the feed opened up. Naturally, with the higher data rate, it's more content, so upgrade network communications and increase computing capacity due to the higher data rate. The notional JPSS 2, 3, 4 LEO timeline, I'm not going to go too much into depth with this. This is going to be more HRD focused. I think Hang will take care of the products aspect of it. But J2 ephemeris data will not be available until GPS is turned on, which is projected to be L plus 5, and the ephemeris data will not be provided to the OSPO FTPS web server. Oh, I should say will be provided, but at a later date. So, HRD broadcast start time will occur after full instrumentation checkout. Again, that's another TBD. Noaa 21 CSPP products are not to be used for operations until the equivalent product on NDE is approved for operations. That was the word that Jim passed along to me. Follow-up user notifications will come out to the HRD community in the future, closer to the launch date. And here is just a quick algorithm cal-val timeline for J2. Again, I won't go over this because I think Leanne will touch on this. HRD user community. This is we haven't did a lot of outreach in the past year since Jim's left for his data operations manager position. But the last check that I had, there was currently 53 direct broadcast sites all over the globe that are scheduling either SNPP or Noaa 20. And a lot of this work was done by, I guess, between WMO DBNet program and as well as the HRD user group meetings. So SPSD does host the HRD user group meeting. I think the last one was probably in July of 2021. It currently has over 80 members and meets every 3 months. Like I said, it hasn't met over in a year, but that hopefully will change here in the near future. And it is aligned to the NESDIS strategic objective to provide consistent, ongoing, enterprise-wide user engagement to ensure timely response to user needs. And I did want to mention something about the OSPO field terminal support page or web page. So OSPO, I should say that the field terminal support page was transitioned over to OSPO into the WOC, and it went operational, I believe, last summer. To note any observed issues with the FTS content, please contact the ESPC Help Desk to have a trouble ticket open. Essentially, it's a three-party kind of system between the data and transition. So it's always best to contact the help desk so that they can send it to the right folks. I've gotten lots of questions as far as, is it a CQ problem, is it a website problem, or is it a actual ESPC problem? So just to note that that's the adequate place to send any and all inquiries. But essentially, it provides all the ancillary and auxiliary data content for users to download. It will support J2 after it's launched. And there's a list of the following documentation. I think there's plenty more to that, but this was just me literally just signing on as a person that has no idea about this and pulling off all the data from it. So it's very user friendly in my opinion. So. And then here's the points of contact for the Direct Services branch, as well as the Office of Satellite and Product Operations, the 24/7 Help Desk, which is the ESPC operations at noaa.gov. And then, yeah, as you can see on the right-hand side, all the direct readouts. So the direct readout position is currently vacant. I just put my name down. There's a placeholder for any questions. I'm also the point of contact for GeoNetcast Americas. I still have my name down for H8M1. I should take that off. But Ian Averick is now the new H8M1 point of contact. And we did just get somebody for the Ghost data collection system. So, and then here's the notification status and content. If users want to receive the ESPC notifications for all the constellations that we manage, as well as the external data content that we get from external providers, they can contact the ESPC Help Desk to get added to that. Archived ESPC messages, so if you do care to look at the archived content, that's the URL to receive that. And the user group meeting, I should say the user group point of contacts at the bottom there. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Seth. Any questions for Seth? Liam.
Thanks for your briefing, Seth. Any chance you could flip back to that slide that talks about changes that are required for JPSS 234? Yes, that one. Okay. So, the third bullet, existing feeds will need modification for the manufacturer. My understanding is that that is required for MEDOC SG, which has data rates up to, I guess, 70 megabits per second. But I thought the last information that I saw from the manufacturer, and I'm looking at the manufacturer sitting in the back row, OJ from Orbital Systems, is that modifications to the feed were not required for JPSS 234. Is that your understanding, OJ?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's my understanding. So the bandwidth in the feeds currently is 120 megahertz. So the change of beam for SG and metal SG is requires 150 megahertz. So we put in the 200 megahertz filter now in the feeds. I don't think that is applicable for J2, to my knowledge.
So I think, just to summarize, my understanding is that a feed modification is not required for J234. However, it is required for MEDOC SG. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
I shall reach back to Direct Readout Lab because this is where I got some of the information from.
I mean, I've seen those bullets before, but they might just need a little adjustment for J234.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nice presentation. How do you get feedback from your direct users? The second question is, do you see the demand for where your institution is saturated after 10 years of JPSS and both are, do you see growing?
So let me answer the first question. I'm probably going to have to ask you for the second question again, but for the most part, for the users, we've had some assistance from manufacturers themselves. So some of the manufacturers do provide some information as far as the user community. CSPP folks, I know, provide a huge a plethora of information as far as some of the user community. And some of the user communities actually they want to be known. I think for the most part in the past satellite conferences, those were key for user outreach, for understanding. And to my knowledge, I think back in 2017 when Jim started these user group meetings, that was key for understanding exactly who the users are. So that's kind of, Jim started that trend with GRB and HRD, and it's kind of evolved into all the broadcast community. So for the most part, it's only the users that want to be known for that aspect, but I think it's I think for HRD and GRB, it's pretty commonplace for the users to, you know. What was the second question? Sorry.
Has anyone and everyone who ever wanted to buy a TV station bought it, and are they, you see this community growing? Or you usually see a ramp up after the second year of the satellite working well, people get excited, they buy a bunch of stations. After 6 years, like you're seeing legacy grows. So everybody who wanted to have a station had one.
So I think for GRB and HRD, it's especially after speaking with a few of the manufacturers, I think it's flatlined over the past couple of years as far as the users that have the money and the capability have already have the receive systems and the capability. One thing to note is the amateur hobbyist community are starting to build GRB receive systems. So a lot of the hobbyist community started, cut their teeth on the H1 portion of it, and it's really blossomed, and now to the point where they are looking at alternative ways to do GRB now. So that is up and coming. I think some of the folks here at Wisconsin have corresponded with some of the folks that play a hand in that. I've got a local guy down here in Wisconsin.
So Seth, just actually to follow up on that particular point, hobbyists. Believe it or not, there are hobbyists who have also built systems to receive HRD from Noaa 20 and Snpp. In fact, we had one of them visit Space Science, didn't he? The guy's built out of bits and pieces his own tracking antenna that can receive and decode HRD data. But just back on the issue that Satya brought up about the market for DB receive systems, one thing that's going to play into that very significantly over the next 3 to 5 years is, number one, Terra and Aqua being decommissioned. Number two, MEDOP SG being commissioned. So there's many people out there who have DB systems that can receive Terra and Aqua, but definitely not MEDOP SG. So if those stations want to stay in this game of receiving data, when Terra and Aqua go away, they're going to lose a big source of data. And when MEDOP SG comes along, they're not going to be able to receive it without some significant upgrades. So I don't know what that means for people buying completely new ground stations. Probably it's going to impact that, but it's also going to impact people that need to upgrade their existing systems. So I don't think we've hit like steady state because the environment in space keeps changing. So.
And also when it comes to CSPP users, on the LEO side anyway, we keep statistics of how many registrants, and how many people download packages, and that has stayed steady per month since essentially the beginning of the CSPP project.
And on the geo side, our user base continues to grow. It's grown linearly, if not more, and as measured by the number of registrants to download. And I think that's true on LEO too. Any other questions for Seth? Rich.
So for GeoXO, will we need GeoNetcast on GeoXO?
It's a great question. It's I don't know if I could talk to that, but I mean, to me, it's the thought process right now is what I'm being told is a commercial satellite rebroadcast. If Noaa is planning to follow similar to what the I guess you could say UMetcast currently provides for its data content, which is also part of GeoNetcast community as well as CMAcast. To me, I would hope that that would be the all-encompassing commercial rebroadcast that NESDIS does provide. If that's the case, that's the path that we go towards. I mean,
Yeah, if you go to your chart, it's still going to be broadcasting data.
so the one thing to note with GeoNetcast Americas is that all of this, pretty much, there is a piece of every one of these direct broadcasts that is flowing on GeoNetcast Americas. Just recently, June 1st, we just put data collection platform data, a copy of that on GeoNetcast Americas. It does have the ISCS data, which is a large portion of the HFIT-MWIN. It has a lot of the, has all 16 bands of cloud moisture imagery. A large portion of it is in mode 6, a lot of it's in mode 3. We do pull it every 15 minutes because it is only 20 megabits per second. But it also takes some of the JPSS high rate data from 5 different sites that's compressed and provided by SIMS, which I think you were paramount in. So it does have an all-encompassing aspect as far as it does. The only thing it doesn't have as far as space weather products from GRB, it does have the GLM 20-second data. So it encompasses a lot of the direct broadcast community, I should say, into one commercial rebroadcast.
If you show your diagram, so if you have the sound and internet, that's basically, think of that as replacing as long as it gets the stuff. But then you have to think of that as also supporting data delivery with the sound and internet should also support LEO as well.
Correct. So to note that they do project a high rate service, and they do project a medium low rate service. So my understanding is that's 2 different transponders. One to encapsulate the GRB stream, and then the other to encapsulate HRM plus DCS data. So for users that do not want to have a, I guess you could say, have to spend money on the expensive GRB systems, like systems should say, they can go to the medium low rate service. That's the current projection for that.
Could you go back to slide 20? So, I don't know if Sajid talked in detail about this, but that first 9 to 12 months, the 2 figures there showing the placement of the satellites in orbit. At that time, is Noah 21 going to be positioned like halfway between those, or is this just kind of a cartoon showing? I mean, is it going to be like 25 minutes? Or has that been decided yet?
Yeah, this is where I might have to phone a friend. Sacha, do you have any information as far as that?
The user community that has the most engaged and impact by putting it in the first scenario there is the ocean community, where they would like to have the phasing of 2 satellites maintained like rather than putting a private formation. Because for them, ocean blend is a big factor. Current phasing, they have an analysis of population that the phasing might be
But during that first year also, only one is, I mean, there's only going to be 2 satellites that will be downlinking the global data.
All 3 satellites will be transmitting, collecting the data, and also will downlink the data. But the current scenario is that we will produce SMPP until such time Noah 21 is capable of operational for the new product. I will not have the use of sustained future for
So like I said, RDR data and SDR data, ODR time. If the user has a DP station, they can receive all three at their own error. If they're tasking up, we have that permission to. And like for users in Alaska, they might have schedule conflicts with legacy codes